Hello? There we go. Okay, so our program is called Introduction to Stellafane. How many people here are here for the first time? Excellent, excellent. So here's what happens. This is a low-key, lighthearted, nice little story about Stellafane. Okay, unfortunately, my wife has the clicker, so when I get too mouthy, she tends to change the slides. So what are we going to talk about this morning? Kim? That's another 5 seconds off of your time. We're going to talk a little bit about the history of Stellafane. Now, let me explain something. Through the years, there are various different versions of what actually happened. As you know, stories can be changed over time. I'm going to give you my version of what happened, and you can find and look and read and find your own version of what happened, but we're going to give you a little story. We're also going to show you a site map and show you where we are, where's the new Stellafane, where's the old Stellafane, so on and so forth. Then common questions to be answered, then your questions, and if we go over time, which we can't, then we'll go in the back, and if you have specific questions, feel free to ask. How's that? Sound all right? Okay, so if an amateur starts out to build a telescope just for fun, he will find, before his labors are over, that he has become seriously interested in the wonderful mechanism of our universe. And finally, there's understandably the stimulus of being able to unlock the mysteries of the heavens by a tool fashioned by one's own hands. And those are the words of Russell W. Porter, who is, you don't need to do that, the founder of Stellafane, and that's March 1923. Now, notice in the verbiage, it says his own hands. Now, why do you think he says that? Because, what'd you say, sir? Well, predominantly in 1923, that's what men did. And women generally didn't do that. Not true today, but certainly was at that time. All right. Now, on August 17th, 1920, 15 men and 1 woman signed up to learn how to grind their own mirrors and make powerful reflecting telescopes. They were machinists and tool makers at the Jones and Lamston Machine Company in Springfield, Vermont. The lone woman was a school teacher. Their instructor, Russell Porter, was well prepared to guide them to work to accuracies 1,000th as large as they were used to doing in their daily precision machine work. So now, something about Springfield that a lot of people don't know is that in this time, Springfield was known for its machine work. And these guys are used to making instruments to the 1,000th of the inch, which is pretty darn accurate. But optics, we're talking about millionths of the inch. So it's like amazing, like how in heaven's name can you make a telescope to the millionths of an inch? And if you're interested, we do have a mirror making demonstration, and you can go over and see the process of how it's done. Now, after completing their telescopes and using them to explore the wonders of the universe, they decided to build a hilltop observatory and an official club. So this is the clubhouse. And we'll talk about the clubhouse a little more. A little more about the Precision Valley is that during World War II, Springfield was a target, and we were concerned that the Germans were going to bomb Springfield. Why in heaven's name would the Germans care about Springfield, Vermont?
I know.
Anybody have a clue?
No. Anyone else have a clue?
Get somebody
What
who
did
hasn't
they
been doing
make
this
back
for
in?
years.
Yeah.
Norden bomb site.
The Norden bomb site.
I've seen one at the museum. They have one.
Really? It's an,
Not our museum, but the Precision Museum in Windsor.
yep, it's amazing. So people would never think of that. As a matter of fact, behind the bunkhouse, which I'll show you later, if you go up, there's actually a cement structure which was the structure built by the original farmer who lived here, and he was going to use that as a machine gun nest because he was concerned that if the Germans came here, that they would be coming up the hill. So it's there. If you want to go in, I wouldn't, but it is there. So now on December 23rd, the first official meeting of the Springfield Telescope Makers was held. Their clubhouse, Stellafane, was built soon after. Now, here's where it gets interesting. You think politics is important today? Well, look at the way things happen to happen. You ever hear that thing, well, one event happens, and all of a sudden, as a result of that one event, miraculous things happen? Well, that's what happens here. Because the club attracted the interest of James Harkness, who was the president of the Jones and Lamston Machine Company, and then he was governor from 1921 to 19. So this guy had a lot of clout. Not only that, but the actual first attempt mirror class was really catalyzed by James Harkness, who went to Russell Porter and said, hey, why don't we, I'd like a telescope, why don't you show us how to do it? And that's how this all started. So Harkness had earlier encouraged and financed Porter's telescope in Maine and made his own amateur observatory, the world's first refracting turret telescope. Now, we have a refracting telescope which uses a lens to focus the image, and then we have a reflecting telescope which uses a mirror to form the image. Big difference, because if you're building a refracting telescope, since the starlight is going through the glass has to be high quality, fine annealed glass. If you're building a reflecting telescope, we put an aluminum coating over the front of the mirror, and the light never goes through it, so we don't have to have the fancy schmancy glass to do it. But in those days, they built refractors. And the reason this is called a turret telescope is because you go into that building, and the eyepiece for this telescope is inside of the building. Now, why would you do that?
It's cold outside.
I want to stay dry, and we're in Vermont, and it's cold. Okay? So Mr. Harkness has this telescope manufactured. Now, Ralph Flanders, who became a senator in Vermont, was a member from the beginning of the club, and Joe Johnson served as governor and joined the club. So now it's getting all intermixed with all these politicians. Now, in 1925, Albert Ingles, who was the editor of Scientific American, and found out about a group in Vermont, so he says, let me go up there and let me see what happens. Before this time, people did not make telescopes in America. A few did. There's a story about a fella, his name is the Miner from Pennsylvania, and he wanted to get a telescope. Well, in those days, you had to order a telescope, specially made, and primarily from the Europeans. So Alfred Bergier contacts a company in Europe and asks for a telescope. Well, guess what? They wouldn't sell it to him. Now, why do you think that would happen? Because they said, what in heaven's name could a miner do with a telescope, so we're just not going to send it to him. What happens? He finds out through this that in fact I can make my own, so he now makes his own telescope in Pennsylvania, and he was one of the first in America that started this revolution. So he had been struggling with his own telescope, was eager to learn if anyone else was interested in building scopes. So during his visit to Stellafane, he gathers enough information to run 2 articles and much illustrations by Russell Porter. The response was so great that Ingles soon started a regular department devoted to amateur telescope making. So now Scientific American, back in those days, that's how you got information. You young guys, we didn't go on the phone and the internet to find out about stuff. We had to read an actual magazine if you could get it. And the great part about that is it now lets America know you can build your own telescope. There was a column called The Amateur Scientist, and that started by the article that Ingles wrote. Now we keep talking about Russell Porter. Now Russell Porter was a man of many, many, many talents. He's the founder of Stellafane. He's also an Arctic explorer. He lived up in Maine. He was also an excellent artist. So his name kept coming up and coming up and coming up because of his many, many, many talents. Now in 1928, Porter was invited to join the scientists because they were going to build a 200-inch reflecting telescope. There's a great book, it's called The Glass Giant of Palomar. And if you can get a copy of that, if you're interested, it's a very easily read book. So if you don't know about astronomy or anything like that, it's really a great, great book. But here's what Porter was able to do. He was able to visualize in his mind. He was also an artist. This guy did it. This guy had his nose in everything. He was able to visualize in 3 dimensions and actually put it down on paper. So if you look at these images here, I can look at that and I can kind of see what I'm supposed to build. Any carpenters here? Well, if I showed someone a plan of a house and you looked at the plan and you saw bathroom, kitchen, living room, you'd probably have an idea of what that's supposed to look like. But when you're building a 200-inch telescope with a very novel mounting to it, if you've never seen it, how are you going to build it? So that's how Porter ends up, which is amazing because Porter is an amateur. So now the amateur is down there at building the largest reflecting telescope at the time in the world. So he leaves Springfield to work on the 200-inch Palomar. Oscar Marshall joins him as a skilled machinist to work on the intricate drive gears and mechanism. The Springfield Telescope Makers is the only amateur organization to boast two of its members having worked on the world's largest optical telescope. And one of the problems that they had that these guys were able to figure out is that, what do I do with a massive 200-inch steel telescope? How do I mount it and make it rotate smoothly? And everybody would say, well, put it on bearings. But you can't do that because the bearings will actually sink into the metal because of the weight, and it's going to lose its shape and lose its accuracy. So they come up with this ingenious idea, and it worked. They pump oil, and the telescope actually floats on a thin layer of oil and is driven by a 1/12 horsepower motor. So what an amazing engineering and design configuration.
Do you have something to add? I saw you pop out. No?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Now, go ahead, Rick.
I would also mention that he designed the dome
Oh,
for the 200-inch telescope as well.
okay. Well, you know what? I'm so happy that you're up. Where's my clicky thingy? Oh, give me the
Gave it to
clicky.
me.
Give me the clicky. Would you mind, since you've been around a lot longer than I have, would you just take a minute and describe how we got this property, please?
From the mic.
I'll use this. So, the original Stellafane was a piece of property that was actually donated to the club or sold for $1, however it was, transferred formally to the club by Russell Porter himself. It was a piece of land owned by the Porter family. Does this thing have a laser?
Yeah.
Oops. Click back, click back. Click it back and show me the laser pointer. There we go.
Right there.
Right in between, okay. Okay,
Okay.
and I'm getting,
Give that to me.
wait a minute, I'll get it. If I don't get it, there it is. Now, I need the laser pointer.
No, you,
I need the laser pointer.
laser pointer is that button right there. Give it to me. Oh,
There it is, okay. So that is the original Stellafane on this map, right here. The clubhouse here and the Porter turret here. The camping field that many of us who are old timers have camped in was the Miller property here, and the Miller property also extends around here and so forth. But the Miller property was a field with a slope down towards the north this way. This was the camping and observing field until the early 80s. And many of us enjoyed many a camping session and observing session on that field. But at one point, the Millers decided that they were going to plant a tree farm there and put in Vermont terminology, put the land into a use program that enables the taxes to go down. So we had to, actually the tree farm was on this piece of land. I'm a little farther over. This is the tree farm and property that was used for camping. However, we had to figure something else out. We were given a couple of years to figure something else out. And fortunately, the Beardsley family was also a friend of Stellafane, and they had some land over here, again. The buttons are very close together, so I'm sorry. So these two pieces of property came to us. This one we had to mortgage to buy. This one was sold to us almost as a gift by the Beardsley family. And so we now have Stellafane East, which is the property we're now sitting on right here in this building. This is called the Far East, and a little bit of camping happens over here. And there's some very interesting short hikes that you can take over in here. And if you're lucky, you might find some blueberries on the bushes over here. But I think most of the blueberry bushes are gone because we didn't want too many bears around. At any rate, this is the property that we now call Stellafane East and the Far East. This was bought for a regular land purchase price and a mortgage. And that's what all the raffles and donation requests for quite a few years were to help us pay this mortgage off, which has now been done. This was much cheaper. I believe it was, either a small purchase, like $1 or whatever, but this is the Beardsley property. Back to you.
Thank you.
Give it back to me.
Back to me. See, she's got that thing now. Okay. So now, Stellafane or stellar fane is Latin for shrine to the stars. It officially refers to the building, but over the years it has commonly been referred to the convention. If you want to say you've actually been to Stellafane, how many people here have gotten on the bus and gone across and gone up where the clubhouse, which is pink? How many people have been there? You walked. I used to walk. All right, so Stellafane's symbol, the little man, first appeared on August 15th of 1930, and nobody knows where it came from, and that's the way it is. So now some different buildings that are on site here. We have the bunkhouse, which was the original farmhouse. Next. Old Uncle Bill's kitchen. You know what? Things have really changed here in the last 20 years, and we now have a beautiful building dedicated to old Uncle Bill. What was Uncle Bill's last name?
Coriskin.
The Coriskin.
He was from New Jersey.
Yeah, the Coriskin building. I call it old Uncle Bill's building. And now we have a beautiful food vendor here, and we have a nice tent, and you have a nice assortment of various foods. The Mcgregor Observatory was dedicated in 1995. I never knew Mr. Mcgregor. Was he not killed in an automobile accident?
Doug Mcgregor was killed in an automobile accident the week of convention.
The week of convention. So this is dedicated to Doug Mcgregor. And we have inside what's called a 13-inch Schumann refractor, and at the time it was the second largest operating Schumann in the world. You want to say 30 seconds of what that telescope does?
It's essentially it's a Schumann mid-dial design done by one of our club members, which is the standard for these. This is the only telescope I know of that has perfect color correction, because even doublets, triplets, all have some blue-purple lines if you look at them. It's got a spherical front opening, which is 13.1 inches, I think. That actually is just a spherical piece of glass, single glass. That goes all the way to the back of the refractor, and there's a mirror there that reflects it back halfway, which is what the roof on the top is. That there's what they call a mid-dial, I believe a mid-dial mirror, which is made from the same melt, so it's exactly identical, and it's got a curved surface on it to correct, and it's surfaced on the back with aluminum. So it's a double pass through, goes to the eyepiece and comes out. Depending on how that is adjusted, you can actually use it as a spectrometer. But you can dial out all color and make it perfectly. So this is a wonderful planetary telescope. It's not really a deep sky telescope.
I'm
Thanks,
going to
John.
throw in a remark for us, and that is, if you look very carefully at this diagram here. That exists. It's in the building now. You can go see it, and it will help you understand the rather complicated optical system. And this mirror, which is both a mirror and a lens at the same time, is called a mangan. And it's a very complex and difficult system. And Jim Daly, one of our members, calculated it, wrote the book on it, and designed the telescope, and has made several of them himself. And it's really an optically better than any other telescope of its size that you'll find anywhere.
And if you're around tonight, if the weather is clear, please make it up there and go and you can look through it. Now we have what's called another turret telescope. I showed you the one over at the Harkness, which was a refractor. We have a reflector. And it's a 12-inch f/17. And you're in the building, and the mirror is outside. I'll show you another picture later if we have time. And the mirror is outside. The image comes into the building, and you can be inside. That will also be open for your observing pleasure tonight. We have the Ash Dome with the Argentini telescope. One of the ideas, I believe, is that we were going to make this handicap accessible.
That's the Bruning Observatory.
Oh, it is now?
It was dedicated a few years ago.
Well, I'm old. Okay, so we need to change that to the Bruning Observatory. Thanks, John. See, everything changes around here, and I don't know what's going on. Go ahead. Now, you're in the Flanders Pavilion. If you came up here, when I started coming up here, you were at the other side in the old Stellafane, and there was a tent. And then we moved down here, and we had a bigger tent, and it was nice until the wind started blowing, and the rain would come through. And now we have this beautiful Flanders Pavilion, this beautiful pole barn, and now you don't have to worry about the rain and the wind. As some of you found out, if it's not clear tonight, this is where we would hold the Saturday night talks. But it's going to be clear tonight, okay? The Tower of Babel, this was, I believe, an attempt to come up with an internet connection or whatever.
That's my old dish.
Yep.
That transmitted to the Mcgregor.
Yeah.
It was the first years when we were able to actually get internet to a wider audience.
We try everything, you know. You give it a shot. If it works, it works. It doesn't, it doesn't. Okay. The dilapidated building, which is now a little nicer, where you buy your T-shirts and things that you like, is dedicated to Roger Tuthill, who was a Stellafane member and came here for many, many, many. He formed the Tuthill Company. And now this is where we get T-shirts, etc., and so on. Okay. Scotty Houston, famous, wrote in Sky and Telescope, Deep Sky Wonders for many years. This is dedicated to Scotty. Now, Scotty was a pretty big man. And it always amazed me how a pretty big man could get into this little teeny-weeny thing. But he did.
That's actually Scotty's camper that the man in the back, John Martin, was able to get a hold of and refurb it. So that is actually...
That's my trailer now.
That's your trailer.
But it was Scotty's, so it's the original.
Okay. And finally, a wonderful instrument, and I don't have the time to tell you the whole story, the Simoni Observatory. This is a Spectra Helioscope. With this telescope, you can look at all of the cool stuff. If you look at the sun through, let's say, the turret telescope today, that's white light. And it's so bright that you could see sunspots and maybe some little faculae. But if you use this instrument, you can actually dial in a wavelength, so like hydrogen alpha would be for the nice prominences, and this will also be running today. Rick, I gotta go, we're over time.
Okay.
You sure?
Yes, I'm watching it.
I just want to say, yesterday I was viewing a prominence through that that would about cover Jupiter in size on the sun. And it was perfectly clear and very beautifully rendered. This telescope is tuned to a fairly well. It can do imaging as well as visual work, and is probably the best operating Spectra Helioscope of its type in the world at this point. So do take a look through it if you get the chance.
And that building was built by club members. The wood came from trees on property, and they were milled here, and it's just an amazing building and everything. So, gotta go check it out.
So Mr. Cook on the right, Russell Porter talking about the Hale Spectra Helioscope. And if you go up into the pink clubhouse, you're going to see some photographs there, and that's made with the Spectra Helioscope. Go ahead.
Those are now in the Spectra Helioscope building.
Oh, okay. So on December 20th, 1989, the 3.5-acre summit of Breezy Hill, including Stellafane Clubhouse and Porter, were listed as a National Historical Landmark. I did good, huh? Yeah. Okay, one more thing, then I'll give the phony the mic. That Spectra Helioscope that's down in the Simoni Observatory was actually built by Hale. And it was part of the University of Pittsburgh, not Pittsburgh, maybe it was Pittsburgh. In University of Pennsylvania, and it was in an attic, and they were going to throw it out. So two of our club members went there and got the instrument and brought it and totally refurbished. And if you go, I'm sure one of those members will be there and they can tell you the story. It's just fantastic way to preserve. So now I'm going to introduce you to my lovely wife.
All right, I'm not going to make you take your shirt off. There's enough people with blue shirts.
Matt Considine and Dave Grosky are the two people who carried that thing out of the University of Pennsylvania at cost of great amount of sweat and brought it to their places and refurbished it and made it what it is now. It was never this good at the University of Pennsylvania. They can tell you lots of stories.
So true. Rick, would you stand up for a second, please? All right. So my name is Kim Cassia. I married my husband, Dennis. He is the astronomer, as you could tell. He talks in all those fancy terms. I, by trade, am a recreation therapist, EMT, firefighter, do a lot of things. And so I started to come up here in 1991. I did the math before. It's 31 years for me. And I got involved. I don't sit very well. I move around a lot. So I started helping the club with a lot of tasks, selling T-shirts, doing this, doing that. When they put us up for club membership, many people said, "You're not a member." I already knew the key, I already had a set of keys, and I knew all the dirty little secrets. So talk to me afterwards. All right, but how do you recognize a club member? Yes, so we have two different shirts. A lot of people don't use the yellow shirts because sometimes the bees are attracted to them. So we prefer the blue ones. So would you please, so you see on the front, it's the same little man, but turn around, sir. So the big thing is the backs. If it says Springfield Telescope Makers, that is a club member. You may sit down, Vanna, thank you. So how do you recognize us? We're walking around during convention wearing our shirts. Some people wear name badges that were made for us by the Brunings and things like that. And you may want to find us because you might have different issues or problems that need to be dealt with. Because some of the club members also carry around radios so we can communicate. What if you need medical attention? In this building, the T-shirt stand where they're selling the T-shirts, the Mcgregor, and at the clubhouse, there are first aid kits. In those kits, we have basic medical attention, everything from Band-Aids to different things that we can bandage you up. You need something more than that, we may have to call 911. We do have epi on site, so anyone who's allergic to bees, we do have epinephrine on site if should we have to use it. We also are very, very lucky that this is a very, very eclectic club. There are people from every walk of life here, from the people doing construction to a cardiologist. So everywhere in between, we have so many different things that our members did as professions. And so our medical team is comprised of nurses, EMTs, doctors. We're very, very fortunate to have those people on taking care of the basic medical needs. How do you find somebody if they're lost? Now let me ask you this, do you really want to find them? Okay, go away for a little while. If you do want to find them, please come up to a club member with the best description you have. We'll get on the radios and we will help you. We have had children wander off and have found them and returned them. The mother was like, really? Huh. No, but she took them back. Same thing with husbands and wives, yes. Where do I buy food and ice? We're very, very fortunate that we have a vendor on site, and he has a lot of food items that you can buy from him, and he is selling ice. But if you don't want that, you want to go to town, there's a lot of restaurants that you can go hit within town, depending on how much you want to pay, what kind of food you want to eat. So you can go to, different places, just ask people, and we'll give you directions. Also, if you want, there is a supermarket in town called Shaw's. You can go down there and buy anything from Shaw's that you would like and, take care of that matter. Can you drink the water? You could. Would I? Nope. That's why we have bottled water that is being sold, and if you're really desperate, we do have water on site. And we also, yes, we have a water cooler, so if you have a bottle, you can stop over there and fill it up and keep it filled up. Thank you. Where can I buy stuff that I need? Again, as I said, we have a Shaw's, but if you go to Claremont, New Hampshire, they have a Walmart. I mean, we're not in the boonies, even though we look like we're in the boonies. We've got Bibbins, right? Hardware store, but my favorite, Dunkin' Donuts, there's several of them around. I need my Dunkin'. So you can get things, if you don't know where to get them, just ask us. Many people will say, oh, you can get that at Bibbins. Oh, you can't get that here, you gotta go to Claremont to the Walmart. All right? Do you sell souvenirs, and why should I support the raffle? Do we sell souvenirs? Absolutely. Every year, our t-shirt master over there changes the design on the t-shirts, enticing people to buy new ones. We have other designs from other years that we will sell as well. So any money that we make on the t-shirts, as well as money that we make on the raffle, do support Stellafane. As you have heard, this property is ours. And we have club members that come here several weeks in advance, as well as our site manager who lives in Springfield. This property has to be mowed. All that string and the rebar have to be put in. We take that out every year. So, and we have to put it in, we have to string it up, cut the land. He, is constantly telling people what to do, cutting down branches and bushes and things like that. So, John Martin is our site manager, and he keeps us on our toes and keeps this place going. Anyone who was here Thursday night, and if you checked in while I was out there in the rain, it was horrible. But he was out there the next day fixing the roads with his York rake and tractor. So I say, let's give up a round of applause to John and the crew. Oh, it's okay, it's okay. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so again, any money that we make goes back into supporting the property, as well as paying for the things like the porta potties. What do you need to get in and out? Well, a lot of times people would take your camping flag and put this on your mirror and flash this to get in and out. Yes, I did say flash, that's hard. But the real thing you need to get in and out is your name badge. So this pink name badge that you have, and it should have the appropriate year. Don't try to use 2020 or 2018. It's got to say 2022 at that convention. So this is what you use to get in and out of property. Your camping flag needs to go on the tent, screen room, whatever you have, so that when John or crew are walking around, he knows that people are supposed to be here. Not that anyone's ever tried to sneak in. All right, how do you get to different locations? Well, for those of us that can use these, you walk. Now that nice lady, she says, I walked up to the pink clubhouse. I did that years ago, and then it's like, okay, then he's giving out. We do have a bus. So we contract with the company. They come in and they take people around with the bus from the clubhouse, thank you, down to the pavilion. So you can take the bus up there. We do not allow cars to drive up there unless you were somebody who was entering your telescope in the convention. You set that up and then it moves. You may see certain cars, like my car stays with me because I'm part of the medical team, so I usually carry the AED, oxygen, and more enhanced medical equipment with me. So other than that, it's walking, the bus, that's it. What program should you attend? Whatever interests you. In the convention brochure, this lists all the programs and activities that we have. And it also tells you whether they're beginner, whether they're for kids, whether they're intermediate. So, you know what? You can go to anything and everything you want. Now, as I said, I'm not the astronomer. So I'll go to some of these things, and afterwards, if I don't feel like asking a question to the speaker, I got my husband. You know, I'm like, hey, what are they talking about? But there is no dumb question, because this is about learning something new, about, you know, learning to build a telescope, learning things about the sky, anything and everything. So go to whatever programs you are interested in. The difference between a technical talk and an informal talk: technical talks are obviously the ones where they're talking about technical items and things of that nature. Informal talks, this is an informal talk. The Friday night talks are informal talks. So, you know, it'll indicate in the brochure what they are. But does it make a difference? No, it's whatever you want to go to. Are there special events for kids? Yes, they're listed in here. I know they had a, what do you call that thing? Robotics competition. I know that Peter Bilo was doing the horseshoe contest, some of the things that people have come up with over the years. If you think there's something that we can do for the kids or for other people or other talks, let us know. Because, you know, when we try to constantly come up with stuff, it's like, okay, what do we want to do now? If there's something that interests you, feel free, let us know. We'll try to do it in the upcoming conventions. Yes, sir. Oh. All right. For those of you who couldn't hear my husband way back here, Dr. Chris Larson is up at the Mcgregor Observatory, and she does a lot of programs for the kids. She does everything from making the planets out of styrofoam and paper plates and things like that. She's really, really great with the kids. I have my big kid there. Yes, sir.
Want to know, Chris Larson is a PhD astronomer, and she's working for the kids' level there. So whatever they do will be accurate, even though it's on a simple level.
That is so true. Thank you, gentlemen, for that. Okay, where do I go for a shower? You know what? I never did find out. Are the showers at Pine Island working? I believe they are. Okay. Might be a little cold. Sometimes we run out of propane. Always my favorite part of convention when somebody went to take a shower, and it's the mountain-fed water that goes in, and it's like, boo. But I believe Tony Costanza or someone else had put the heater on there.
I believe most people that want a warm, good shower go down to Tree Farm Campground in Springfield, and I believe they will sell a shower for around $4 or $5.
Yeah.
campgrounds?
Tree farm campgrounds, about $4 or $5 for a shower.
I say that I didn't actually check this year in the past. It is a campground. It has, real hot. The showers here, we really strive to keep things going. It's pretty rude. It's basically a cold shower.
Yeah.
On Sundays, it's a good thing.
All right, she says it's wonderful. All right, I know that the truck stop, I forgot to call them, but in Springfield, they used to do it for a fee as well. But you know what? We all stink together, sorry. Anyway, is the gate locked? No. Once people are on property, we do not lock the gates. We do have 3 gates. We do not use the first one because that's where our security guard is. So we keep that gate closed. The gate that you come in and out of is the one where the big rock is, and I thank you, somebody put the hand up there. So you pull in, you see a hand going like this. That meant to turn in, and then the bottom gate is where you come out. On Thursdays, people want to know why can't they come in before 3 o'clock on Thursdays if you paid for early entry. From 12 to 3 is when we bring in the big campers. If you don't know what I'm talking about, walk up the hill over there and take a look at some of those things that come in here. One is 37 feet long, and I don't even know how tall it is. And we have to use the bottom gate to get them in and be very, very careful so we don't run over any kids or dogs or parent, anybody. So once people are here and convention is started, everything is open. Obviously during the year, unless we're on site, it's locked up. Why do I need a red light at night? Anyone? What happens when I shine a white light in your eyes? Yeah, I get blind. So I did not check, but we normally have the red cellophane at the clubhouse, sometimes the t-shirt stand, and sometimes down here. I will find out, but you can always ask. If you didn't bring it with you, we have the red cellophane that you can put over your white light to make it a red light so you do not upset anyone. From what I understand, last night they were able to view until 11:30, and hopefully we'll have some good viewing tonight as well. Can you look through someone's telescope? Just ask them. This is a place where people like to show off some of their work, some of the telescopes they've built, the mirrors they've made. The only thing you have to do is just ask. I've learned that, and then they start talking to you and telling you all these things. If you don't understand what you're saying, you do what I do. Oh, that's really cool. And then I go and ask my husband. Or you can just say, I'm sorry, I don't get it. Can you bring it down a notch? And they will talk to you in terms that you understand. What are the swap tables? Well, those were things that happened this morning. That's where people bring things. They bring parts. They bring anything and everything. And it's a swap table. So you want to go and see if they have a part you need for a telescope or something to, something that you can use. I've seen everything and everything sold at those tables. I didn't make it there this morning. I'm sorry. I slept in. Where can you go to charge your phone? Right here. Charging station in the back. You can plug it in and have your devices get charged up so that you can keep in touch with the real world. Me, on the other hand, mine's in my pocket and it's off. I don't want to know what's going on out there. Leave me alone. How do you get rid of your garbage? Garbage, we have dumpsters on site. We ask that please help us clean up the site. Even if it's not yours, you see it, please clean up. We have barrels in the buildings and on property. Put your garbage in there. And when you leave, please try to clean up your area. It helps us immensely because, again, these people in the blue shirts, we're all, club members, but, it helps us out because some of us are getting older and bending down is starting to hurt. Yes, sir.
You glossed over it kind of lightly.
Yes.
Very important to the club. We have wonderful prizes if you get tickets.
Oh, gosh, thank you. Yes, raffle tickets. This year, they were mailed to my house, and I would not let my husband open them. I had $11,000 worth of eyepieces. The convention this year is being dedicated, and I cannot say the man's name, to a gentleman that worked with the Neglers to design various optics and things like that. So we have 2 bags of daylight, 2 bags of Delos, and 2 bags of Ethos. They go from $1,000 to almost $3,000. So we have 6 bags of eyepieces. We also have some other great gifts, some homemade gifts, books people have bought. People have been bringing us a lot of awesome items. We're going to have a children's raffle. I'm also going to institute a teen raffle this year, and then we have the adult raffle. So we're going to have 3 different raffles, but if you want to win the big stuff, you got to pay for the tickets. All right, so yes, thank you very much for that. And all the money we make off of that goes right back into the club. All right. Volunteering. That was mentioned before. I am the volunteer coordinator. A lot of people contact me via email saying, hey, what do you need before convention? I get back to them. I do have forms that we fill out. I keep track of what people do because then I can report back to the club on volunteering. But if you see me around, you know, please ask me if you're interested and we can discuss it then. Be sure to visit the original Stellafane National Historic Landmark. As we said before, you know, you've got the clubhouse, you've got the telescope, and you've got the the Simoni Observatory with that. All right, does anybody have any questions for me or my husband? Yes, ma'am. Okay, well, the question, let me just repeat the question so everybody can hear it, and I'll get John, is about getting off property. Well, we don't want you to run over any kids or dogs or any of that, but also sometimes people have headlights which can be adjusted or they don't know how to. But I'm going to let John take over. Go ahead, sir.
Just so you know, there's observing goes on through the entirety of where we are. So people could be observing up here. I see a telescope right there. We ask that people not use any white lights that are visible outside of like their tent or inside their camper or something, simply because there are people observing all around the site. Now, let me tell you, there are some people that can get aggressive if they see a white light, and turning on a white light can get you shouted at.
But John, she's asking, how does she get off? John,
no, when the only time that you're allowed to actually have a white light on a car is when the Saturday night talks are over. There's a half-hour grace period there where anyone can use a white light. Other than that, you cannot drive around after dark. You cannot leave anywhere. You can't turn your white lights on your car on. If you do, be aware that you will probably cause a huge screaming match from many people. So really, there is no car traveling allowed after dark.
Well,
other than after the Saturday night talks, and then we have a grace period for a half an hour where everybody is encouraged to have their lights on. Does that make sense? What's that? No. We never know how long the Saturday night talks are going to be. They've been as short as 2 hours. They've been as long as 5.5 or 6. It really depends on how much it lags and stuff like that. So there's an announcement made by the speaker who does it over there. Will announce that for a half an hour from that time, white lights are acceptable. Anybody can use them because a lot of people are in town. They're leaving and stuff. We recognize that. But other than that, white lights after dark. And when I say dark, I mean astronomical twilight, whatever. Yeah, it depends on which twilight you talk about. But really, if it's dark enough, people are starting to use their telescopes. I would strongly suggest you not to use a white light.
A lot of people come here to do astronomy, so we don't want to interfere with that any more than we have to.
Okay.
I believe we're out of time for the 10
No,
o'clock
I think I got
hour.
one more minute because we started late. I just wanted to point out one other thing. One thing I forgot to mention is there are people with dogs. Before you approach anyone with the dog, please ask them. Most of the dogs here are friendly. Like my little dog is scared. It's his very, very first Stellafane. My house sitter got sick. But just please, out of courtesy, ask people before you do reach down and touch their dogs. As Dennis said at the beginning, if you still have questions, we don't want to interfere with Cliff's program. We'll go outside and we can answer those questions. But you have a really good presentation coming up next. I'd like to thank everybody for your time, your patience, and I'd like to say for those of you who are new to Stellafane, welcome. Hope you have a great time and enjoy. Thank you.